What I want to talk about with retargeting, Edwin, is that, in a lot of your other interviews, you have talked a lot about the retargeting. And what's interesting to me is I'm an SEO, so I don't really deal with the paid placements or the retargeting. However, as a user who's in digital marketing, I know that even with the brands I love, most retargeting comes down to I went on the website, they showed me a general ad that they have that I'm assuming everyone sees. Maybe if it's a little bit more sophisticated, they'll show me what's in my cart, but that's pretty much the extent of it. And so in your talks, you talked about how a lot of these e-com brands are just scratching the surface. I think where I really want to begin is, can you talk to like going deeper with retargeting and essentially where you found success and where other companies and brands can be like where they can be finding success with deeper, more advanced retargeting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So think of retargeting, like obviously when you're selling something, you're either selling to consumers or you're selling to businesses, there's a big pool of people that you're, reaching out to, right? But all of these individuals are different. Like they're in a different stage of their consideration funnel. They're in a different stage of warmth, right? Some customers are so very, very cold. Some customers are very, very warm, right? So you want to start with the segmentation. And typically where we found the most success is we would take our big pool of retargeting customers and we'll ask ourselves, well, how do we grade these customers, right? What if someone has already been a customer and they're checking out like a different product line or a different product that they may not have purchased before? How do we treat that person differently, right? Versus someone who has only visited the site once and they visited like 15 days ago versus someone that visited 20 times in the last 24 hours, right? We first started with the segmentation. So from a very kind of basic high level, like without knowing the brand or how big it is or any of the details, we'll first start with existing customers. If you're retargeting to existing customers, they don't need to be sold again, right? They were already sold before. They've already seen that episode of the TV show. Like they don't want to see the same thing, right? Like get them reasons to be excited to come back and check out the brand again. Like, do you have a new product, a new flavor, a new product line, something that keeps you top of mind and interested in coming back and hopefully purchasing again, right? And the reason why I bring that one up first is that a lot of brands, they kind of forget to treat their current customers differently. And that is such a big deal, right? It's so much easier to get a current happy customer to buy the second time than to convince someone brand new to buy the first time. So that's kind of the first big segment that I would, take a look at. The second set of segments I will look at is divide them up based on how warm they are, right? So with retargeting nowadays, I mean, the pixels are so advanced and the settings are so advanced. I can figure out if someone's in the top 10% of time on site versus if someone is on the bottom 10%. Like, what is that telling you, right? If someone's spending 18 minutes on your site and if someone's spending 18 seconds, they're in very different stages of the consideration cycle. That person that spent 18 seconds, maybe a little less valuable, but you're going to do a lot more introductory messaging, a lot more convincing, maybe a lot more retargeting touch points to convince that person to do something, right? Whereas if someone spent 28 minutes on your site, I mean, they're almost there probably, right? They're almost ready to sign up via lead. They're almost ready to whip out their credit card and make that purchase. So they may need to just have some messaging around, what we call FUDs, right? Fear, uncertainty, doubt, right? When someone's just about to check out or they're just about to hit the submit button, there's usually some sort of fear, uncertainty, or doubt that is causing them to stop at that point, right? And let me elaborate more, right? Because I mean, those are kind of just buzzwords right now, right?
So let me, is that like an internal one you made up or is that generally accepted? FUD?
That's generally accepted.
Okay.
If you say, let's address the FUDs, I would say probably a good amount of people will know what that means, right?
Okay. So I'm showing my noviceness in the paid side of things, but I love that.
We're all novice at something, right? That's why we're all always learning. So fear, right? Like, is there something that the customer is scared of? Like a lot of times it's buyer remorse, right? Like I have the fear that if I buy this thing and I don't like it, I'm going to be stuck with it and I'm going to lose my money, right? So this is what type of messaging can you use to counteract that. Hassle-free returns, maybe 90-day returns. maybe 365-day returns, right? Like those are all things that in a retargeting message will cause someone to go, oh, holy moly, my fear just got busted. I am ready to buy. I trust this brand, right? Uncertainty.
So I
Go
want
for
to
it.
jump in real quick in an example. Google Flights just came out with a program that I haven't played with yet, but their version of that is they guarantee that the flight they sell you is the cheapest in the web, and like they'll direct you to go buy it. But they say like if you do end up finding the flight cheaper at any point in the future, we will honor it or something like that. So that might be a good example. I don't know if that's like, I haven't read that deeply, so I don't want to be one of those people that like, oh, I read the headline, I think I know, but I think Google's whole thing was not only is it going to be cheapest right now, because as you know, with flights, they change. Their whole thing was like, no, we'll mark flights that we know that this moment, this price will be the cheapest it'll ever be. And I'm like, ballsy. That's interesting. But yeah, so that's a good example probably of the fear side of things.
Yeah, that was strike that, right? So, since you said on this podcast, if they can't get the refund through Google, can they come to you, Jason? Get the refund.
Yo, man, I am nothing affiliated with that. And I might even be quoting the article wrong, right? I'm going to come up with an apology podcast episode. Like, I got that wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about uncertainty, right? Like if there's ever anything that's unclear to the customer, that's going to cause friction and then they're going to bounce at that point, right? So a lot of uncertainty, I'm just speaking from, direct to consumer from an e-commerce standpoint is, when is this product going to ship out? When am I going to receive it? Is it even in stock? Like, is it going to be back ordered? How do I enter the promo code? Why don't you just auto apply it for me? And I take that head out of the way. So like any of the uncertainty that is introduced, try to bust those in your retargeting messages, right? It'll just make the process much more frictionless and much smoother for the customer, right? Like we've even done A/B testing where if we auto applied the promo code for the customer, we've seen tremendous lift in conversion rates because they don't have to hunt for that little, coupon code button on the cart page. We just took one piece of uncertainty out of the way, right? And then doubts, right? People always have doubts when it comes to buying products, especially if they never heard of the brand, right? No one wants to be the first customer of a brand new brand no one's ever heard of before, right? So there's a lot of doubt there. Like, am I going to get a good product? Am I going to have a good relationship with this brand? So how do you eliminate doubt, right? Like one of the biggest things is social proof. Like if you've seen that 1,000 other people have purchased from here before and they had a great experience, they have 5-star reviews, they were quoted in Forbes, they have some sort of certification, that's going to help eliminate some of the doubt, right? If I'm going to go and buy, I was just going through this funnel yesterday. If I'm going to buy vitamins for my 3-year-old, right? You're going to be certain that I'm going to have some doubts. Like I want to know what the ingredients are. I want to know what other parents thought. I want to know if toddlers generally like the flavor or do they just go poo and just like spit it out across the room, right? Mm-hmm. So once I saw those reviews, once I saw the press on it, once I saw like a video review from a customer, that helped to assuage my worry, right? That eliminated some doubt. That would be a great piece of retargeting right there, right? For someone who is highly engaged, but like almost about to get there, right? So from a segmentation piece, and I sort of bled a little bit to the messaging piece. I mean, that piece is very important, right? So because you can see now that if you're highly engaged, you kind of focus on this piece of messaging. Whereas if someone is only, engaged for 18 seconds or they're only looking at one page, they're going to need a lot more introductory, messages from the brand. Like, what's the brand story? What other products do they sell? Like, why choose this brand over that brand? Like, what are the value props? Like, they need a lot more education and they need to go deeper in the funnel. And that's where retargeting, a lot of brands, they kind of have like a one size fit all, right? Like everyone's ever been a site, here's all the messaging and, have at it, right? But you can see that because customers behave so fundamentally different and expecting different pieces of messaging, that segmentation right then and there, I think is really important.
So 10 different ways we can go. But the first thing I want to mention was I just using myself as a data point. I actually get miffed with brands if like I like the brand and I have bought multiple times and I keep getting the generalized retargeting thing. I'm like, bro, I already am a big fan. Like, I hate to say it out loud, but this is a marketing podcast. Dude, can you treat me like someone who's bought like 20 things from you already?
Yes.
Don't show me like the ad I know you're showing to everybody else.
Yeah.
But I think there also is a consumer level of like, if they become a recurring customer, it would be nice to get different things, but also it could actually start to be annoying for them because there's like one company I've bought from. Oh, so like I don't want to name anybody, but I bought a really expensive desk, and I keep getting retargeting ads for like, hey, we've been using like seasonal special on desks. And I'm like, when would I need another desk for myself? Like, I'm sure you have other products you can retarget me with, but you keep telling me about buying a second desk. That's me being super selfish with the annoyance. But where I did want to drill down on is you had mentioned something that I had never thought to do with FUDs or FUD. I get all of that. I think you can go to any webinar and you can see like, oh, well, throw some social proofing on the landing page, throw the warranty on there. I think we all conceptually get that. But you had said combating FUD with retargeting. And to me, I had never heard of that because I think there is so much pressure to be time on. Like, I mean, they're there already and just force them through. But if I'm understanding correctly, you're also saying people may abandon the cart, or you're like preemptively fighting the FUD before they get to the cart.
Exactly.
Is that essentially like, am I going on the right track with that?
Yeah, pretty much, right? Because you don't want people to get miffed or frustrated. You want to get one step ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're almost taking them by the hand and you're showing them the road to the promised land before they even know where they're walking, right? That's kind of what you're trying to do. As marketers, if we nail that experience, then we're doing our jobs, right? We're kind of preemptively predicting their needs and then getting ahead of those needs. So 100%, that's correct. And, like taking your desk example, right? I think what might have been a better piece of messaging, and then you let me know what you think. Like, let's pretend I'm the one running that campaign, is what if I said, if you refer this desk to your friend, I'll give you a $20 gift card. And then you can use it to buy a desk accessory, right?
Yeah,
so this way, yeah.
Well, honestly, I ended up buying a desk for my dad because my dad had leg problems, and I'm like, well, I want to get him a desk so that he is more healthy. And so that would have been perfect because like it should have been like, because I bought a really high end table. It's probably like one of the highest end tables. And I was like, it's been wonderful for me. And to your point, like if they had said, hey, share the amazing ergonomics, of this table with your friends and family, I would have been all over that because I did actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be much more prudent and relevant to where you are, right? As an existing customer. You don't need to be resold again, but can we get this happy customer to help us generate one more sale for like a $20 cost per acquisition, right? The cost of gift card, right?
Yeah,
that could be very fruitful. And that would be something that, you would pique your interest, right?
Yeah, it's like being like a micro ambassador, like allowing me to go down that path, which is like, oh, you'll be compensated or you'll be rewarded for doing that. So talking about the retargeting and combating FUD, on that note too, so what a natural thought that would come to my mind is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right?
Doubt.
Yeah, okay, doubt. I would worry that if we were to retarget with some ads, trying to fight off all the categories of what a person might be concerned about would just make a really cluttered creative. How do you achieve clear messaging, fighting all the FUD and not have it look so cluttered or just be so like sloppy?
Yeah. So the key word here is personalization, right? Like the good and bad thing about all the tracking pixels and all the tracking codes that we have online is that, yes, it does track your entire journey from page to page, but it's giving us marketers the ability to say, hey, I know that you were on the dog kibble pages, right? You were not on any cat pages. You were not on dog toys. You were on all of the dog kibble pages. So based on your browsing history and your behavior, that's what I'm going to show you, right? That's what's going to be in front of you. Maybe there will be some cross-sell opportunities, right? Maybe people who buy dog kibble might also sometimes buy dog supplements, right? But we use that information to show you what we think you want to see and not things that you probably don't want to see, right? So like a lot of that information is available for us to build those segments off of and to build that personalization. So you're really seeing the right thing at the right time and you're not really seeing anything else that could be cluttering up the messaging.
Perfect. And so where my mind goes is like, I'm already getting excited. I feel like if I was in your industry, I'd just start going to my clients right now and I'd be looking at the data. Yeah. However, I think a natural issue that always pops up, and you've talked about this in your other interviews, is to set expectations on data. Like if you don't have a high spend, it might take 3 or 4 months to get the data. But I think a really annoying aspect of getting data is I think there's a chicken and an egg problem sometimes. It's like, oh, I need more data to ask better questions. But to get data, sometimes you need to know what you're trying to find to get the right data. So sometimes you'll wait 3 or 4 months and be like, oh, well, we're asking the wrong question. And unfortunately, the data only answers an improper question we had thought of in the beginning. That's my long-winded way of asking, like, for those listening who like want to be like, wow, segmentation, personalization with the retargeting, that's amazing. Where are you finding is the most like profitable and impactful places to probably begin? I know every brand's different, but where are you generally starting with the leads or the clients that are fresh with you, may have no data, and you're like, these two pockets is usually where we'll find the most impact if we get started right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's like two buckets of things that must be done, right? I think the first bucket is you need to prepare your infrastructure so it will eventually get to that point, right? So we start off day one. Yes, I may not have enough data. I may not have enough traffic or spend or whatever the reason is, but I'm still going to set up the pixels correctly. I'm still going to set up the tracking so it starts collecting correctly from day one, right? Yeah. No harm on that, no foul, right? So I think that's the first piece. And the second piece is, keep the important thing the important thing. I mean, if you are a new brand starting out and you have limited funds, I mean, what is the most important thing? The most important thing is not creating the world's most advanced segmented retargeting funnel, right? That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is getting new customers into the door, not losing your shirt on the customer acquisition, and scaling that up as much as possible. So just keep your focus on that. Again, you've already set up the segments, the tracking codes, all that is collecting. And then for the retargeting, just do a one size fit all. Okay. Do dynamic retargeting, let the algorithm handle it. It's not going to be the most advanced, but it'll get you from point A to point B, and to just keep your head down and keep acquiring customers and keep making customers happy. And then once you just focus on that for a while, the retargeting pool is going to fill up. It's going to take care of itself down the road.
Got it. It's in a sense to me then where a lot of people stopped is that they got lulled into a false sense of security with, oh, the algorithm or the platform has got it. And so that box is checked and let's move on to something else. Where you're like, no, that is the start for everybody. But then you want to go deeper. That's when you start the baton passes and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also depends on, your situation, right? Like maybe for certain brands, you let the algorithm figure out, how to steer the algorithm, and then locked into something that's profitable. Keep doing that. There might not be a compelling reason to put in the additional time and energy and spend to segment these things out. But if your brand becomes large enough and you have a ton of spend and a ton of data, a lot of data points to look at, then that's where the segmentation becomes, more fruitful.
Got it. So I think the way that I was thinking about the segmentation is really about like once a customer buys and then i.e. also, or not i.e., but like transitioning to if they start repeating might be a dumb question, but for the segmentation, are you also doing that on the non-customers, the ones that might have come once or twice and then they leave? Are you finding that there's any benefit segmenting the one-timers or the two-timers, or is that more generalized?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely benefits to that, right? Because the first big divide is purchasers versus non-purchasers. But if you take a look at your non-purchasers, which is probably by far like the bigger segment, it's worth it to subdivide them, right? Like if someone has just, 24 hours ago been on your site, like they're still pretty warm. They probably remember a lot of that messaging. They probably remember what you stand for, right? So your budgets and your aggression and your messaging and your effort should coincide with that. It should be more of your time and effort trying to close those customers because they were just at your door, right? They were just in your store. Whereas if they were in your store, so to speak, take this analogy, 7, 14, 28, 365 days ago, right? You might be a little bit more than a fuzzy memory. So you might need a little more education. You might need like reintroducing the brand a little bit, and you might need to take their hand and kind of say, oh, these are the categories we have and these are the products that we sell. So that messaging might be very different. So that segmentation for that non-purchaser segment is still, very, very key and important.
Got it. Okay, so segment all around, but the key is don't get too complex too early. Just let it run, and
Yes.
then you'll naturally get into segments that make sense.
Yes,
Now,
correct.
another thought then for me is, I'm hyped. I like to joke, and maybe you would agree with this. Sometimes your client, even though they could be the business owner or the marketing team, are not the best to explain their ideal customers or prospects sometimes. Like,
Hmm.
while they're right, sometimes they're also really wrong. And in my
Yeah.
world, SEO, I take the keywords that a prospect tells me with a general grain of salt because, and I know they know their business, but from an SEO perspective and keywords, they don't, right? That's where we're brought in.
Hmm.
When segmenting, I would be like, oh, well, these are probably the segments that we could start with. I guess what I'm curious about is, like, in the segmentation, how human focused are you on that? Like, oh, these are our guesstimates of 5 segments that we're going to test, or are you pretty certain with the data that the data will speak for itself? Like, where's that element of just the way for the data to tell you, or where's that human element of like, yes, the data's there, but we have to make some inferences about this person because of the data, right? Because oftentimes you get data, but you have to create a narrative with the data. And that's where, like, if the personas come in, I'm wondering, I guess my general question is, segmentation wise, as you get more and more segments, how does that look? Like, is it only the data? Is it you guesstimating with the team? What does that all look like?
Yeah. So let's take a step back. Based on the numbers that we have, right? The numbers are always the numbers. They're always going to tell some level of truth, right? So this takes me back to, before I started the agency, we were running our big first like demographic analysis, and we thought that our best customers were like millennials, 25, 34, young, hip, slightly upper income. And we looked at all of our data and we spent the time and money and time and energy, like buying this data and seeing what our customers are. It was 55 to 64-year-old female. Like that was the golden segment. So it kind of shows you that, we had expectations, and as marketers, we are wrong all the time, right? So we pivoted our strategy to like cater to that segment, and we grew it and we kind of blew it out of the water, right? So the numbers are the numbers at one point in time. But, on the second, the human side of things, right? There's often the storylines that cannot be revealed on just data and numbers alone, right? Like they can only go so far. So, one thing that we always ask ourselves is, are the numbers the numbers because this is what the situation is? Or is it because all we're doing marketing wise is attracting this person, right? Like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, especially because, as media buyers, a lot of times we're staring at the interface, we're buying media, we're doubling down, tripling down on winners. And then inadvertently, the new customers that keep coming in look just like the old customers. And that's all we're doing. Right. So I think it's important to like zoom out a bit and to continually like get some human touch points. Like my whole career, like one of the most important things that have been imparted to me is spend some time with customer service. Like go down there and man the phones for a day. Talk to the customer service team. Like who are coming in? What type of issues do they have? Like what type of worries and concerns they have? And a lot of times it unlocks a ton of insights that cannot be gathered in numbers, right? Like I can't tell you how many times where, we will look at a post-purchase survey, or we would like spend some time with customer service and we're like, oh, holy moly, there's a whole segment of customers that are ripe for the taking, but they don't like our brand of products because they're confused about this, right? Or they're looking for this feature that we're not clearly communicating. And you're not going to see that in numbers, right? You can only see that if you talk to customers or you read things that they say, or you read their reviews. Right? You read their angry emails that come to you, right? And then once you take those insights and you marry that with the numbers, then like a whole plethora of opportunities can unlock, right? You may come up with marketing campaigns and pieces of messaging that you may have totally ignored if you were just to look at the numbers, right? Because sometimes numbers are self-fulfilling prophecy. Like they're only what they are because you keep doing the same thing to get those numbers coming back in.
Well, and that's why I'm glad, like, and you pretty much hitting on exactly where I was going with this is I think we've all been in rooms where data is used to validate an initial thought before the data even existed. It was just like, oh yeah, well, this is what our assumption is. And so here's the data to back it up, where I think sometimes that does a disservice because it literally is only using it for that one specific reason, where like you said, data annoys me sometimes because I think of myself as a data first person, but people are like, oh, like, let the data speak. I'm like, but there's a lot of blind spots with data too that like you can't know and until you filled in some qualitative, data, right? And I think that's where I could see some people like, oh, let's do the segmentation, but they'll do it based on what they already think exists. And that's why I'm like, even if you segment down to something that you've already been doing before, like you said, it's like the echo chamber effect. Like you may be completely oblivious to other options and everything, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, as marketers, a lot of times we get caught up with, I'm looking at spreadsheets, I'm looking at data points, I'm looking at the ad interface or some sort of analytics dashboard, but sometimes we lose sight that we're talking to somebody at the end of the funnel, and that's a person, right? So sometimes we lose sight of that, and I think it behooves everyone to reconnect with those customers every so often, especially your best, right? Like I think one of the most insightful exercises that we do at brands is tell me who your top 5% customers are. Who are they? What do they look like? What are they concerned about? Why are they buying from us over and over again? Like find out those reasons, like find out the storylines behind them, and then start integrating that because you want obviously more of those customers. You want more whale customers, right? More customers that drive tremendous, repeat purchase value, tremendous lifetime value, whatever it may be.
So something that I've also thought about too is I don't deal with retargeting issues, but this does come up with SEO occasionally. And so I'm curious how you deal with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we will identify keywords that make a lot of sense for the business because they could get a lot of traffic. But the client has some angst or some reservations that, hey, that would go to a different audience and that is not our business. Like, but from my perspective, your product is still sought out for. They're Googling that term and you could sell it to them, but the reservation is like, oh, but that doesn't really fit our brand identity and, our core customer. When we talk about taking a step back, and feel free to let me know after you answer this, if we're going way too off the deep end, but I think I've been in these situations where sometimes you find a finding, but it gets shut down because people are like, oh, well, that doesn't fit us. What if your data is telling you like, oh, just like this audience, we thought it was millennials, but it's not millennials. It's a completely different audience. To me, that registers, hey, change your creative, change your copy. Like you got to start updating things. How do you approach that if you feel like the data is telling you a whole totally different audience? Do you do like a microcosm of different creative just for them? How are you like testing that essentially?
Okay. I mean, let's take this example, right? So let's say you have a set of keywords that you're ranking for SEO wise, ranks very well, and the customer loves them, right? The client loves them, on brand, making money, everyone's happy. Okay. So now you have a second bucket of keywords. You could rank them really well on the SEO side. And then customer says, well, that doesn't really fit our brand identity, or that doesn't work for us for whatever reason. I guess the question is, what are the reasons, right? Like, are they customers that have a lower value because they cause more issues with customer service, or they have lower lifetime value, or are they buying once and never coming back? I think I would love to do some discovery there, right? Because maybe they are totally right. And again, as, agency owners or as, service providers, we don't know the business as well as our clients. Clients know their own business best. So maybe there's something there that we would love to educate ourselves on and figure out, if that is the case. Because if that is the case, right, again, now put on our human hat on, let's rank for those keywords and let's point them to someone else, right? Let's point them, even if it's the competitor. If that's not our best customer and our competitor is a better fit for them, just point them over there. Right? Like don't even have them in our ecosystem, give those customers to someone else. Right. But on the flip side, if there is no data there, if the data maybe even says that this customer is on par or maybe even better, in terms of value to the business, I would love to run a test, right? Like I agree with you. I think that maybe this is a little bit off brand, but let's just see what happens. Like ranking for this keyword is very likely not going to be the thing that takes you under, right? It's just more traffic. Maybe it's not the right traffic, but let's test it out. Let's see what we can do. Cause maybe there are ways to, massage that segment. So it is more on brand or is more valuable, right? Cause again, like nothing ever happens online without a click or visit, right? If people aren't even coming traffic wise, then, you can optimize everything, up the wazoo, but, there's no traffic to convert, right? So let's get the traffic first and let's see how it behaves.
Yeah. And most of the time, the business owners, they do know, or the clients, they do know. But there's always that like 30 to 40% time where I'm like, are you just used to saying no to everything that's not the core customer? Or are we looking away from an opportunity? And a quick nugget for listeners is from an SEO perspective, how I recommend if you are going out for a keyword, but the page you have to create makes you nervous about the overall feel of your website, just don't put it on the main nav. Like publish it, but don't put it on the main nav. Now, SEO wise, it is best to have things on the main navigation. Like it can often be an inhibitor to ranking if you don't have it on the main nav. However, to me, it's a meet in the middle. Or like, let's see if this page that's not on the main nav, and it's kind of hard to navigate to if you even wanted to. If it starts going from the 10th page to the 3rd page, then we can start having some serious conversations of like, hey, here's an opportunity. And then that's how I recommend clients, because I've had situations where I've fought 3 or 4 months for like, hey, we should look into this opportunity. And the 3 or 4 months passed just to get it convinced. And now we have to do a whole SEO campaign around it. That's the way we do on the SEO side of things.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I don't know if I'm the best person to keep moving the retargeting conversation, but is there anything else that I think on retargeting that I haven't brought up that you want to like look into? Because I'm taking it from a person on the outside. Is there anything retargeting wise that you want to explore a little bit more?
I think it's important to think about sequence, right? Like a lot of people, they kind of throw up ads, creatives, copy, headlines a little willy-nilly, so to speak, right? They kind of throw it up there and the campaign launches and it just runs, right? But then we always kind of look at things sequentially as much as we can, right? Because, what happens when you find a new TV show and you love it, right? Like episode 1 introduces you to the characters. Episode 2 introduces you to a little bit of the plot. Like we think of things that way too. Like for the introductory ads, right? That would be our prospecting outside retargeting. That's introing the brand, founder story, origin, value props, use case, right? But once you're going down further into the show, you're more invested. You're on episode 7. This is where retargeting comes in. Then you get more into the weeds and then more into the details. Here's our shipping policy. Did you know that 15,000 happy customers bought this, right? Did you know that this is our most popular product? And if you buy this, you're probably going to like it, right? Like we think of things from that sequential aspect to make sure that it makes sense when you nurture someone down the funnel, all the way from awareness, all the way down to purchase, right? And then B, we want to make sure that you're hooked, right? Like you don't want to see a similar sounding ad 6 times in a row, right? That will make you tune out the show. That's boring. You want to make sure that a different hook is in place for every piece of messaging in the retargeting funnel, and it has some sort of cohesive kind of storyline or messaging, right? There was one test that we ran and it did tremendously well when we A/B tested it was, the best initial touch point for retargeting for this particular brand was the origin story. Like having the family that started this brand together and what they had to go through was the best initial touch point for retargeting. Then you went on to the best selling SKU and you explained why that was the best selling, because it had a bunch of different flavors, bunch of different products, but typically the highest value customers bought that SKU first. Like that was the best SKU to introduce you to the brand. Then we talk about, our label and our philosophy around ingredients and why this is better than competition as the 3rd episode, right? And then if you take that 1, 2, 3 punch together, right? And we had that intent and you combine it with the segmentation, that's where we got really great results from it. So I think that's an important thing.
All right. What is the 1, 2, 3 punch?
Well, it's different for every brand, but the 1, 2, 3 punch is, think about someone going from awareness to, consideration to comparison to maybe the FUDs, right? Like think about things in that sequential order. Make sure you're creative and your copy and your headlines, your imagery, fit some sort of storyline that it makes cohesive sense as people go through.
A quick aside. I don't know if I just noticed this now because we're talking, but like, I guess marketers just love talking in metaphors and analogies because you keep talking in analogies. And I'm like, I do that too, though. But I do like the TV show analogy because to further your point, have you ever you love a TV show and you rewatch the first 3 and you're like, what the heck? Like this character was so different in the beginning because also they progressed too. I used to love the show. I probably still do, Community. But if you ever watch like the first
Mhm.
episodes of Community, and then later the characters, they get pretty siphoned into different characters later and everything. But I think what I'm liking is that it sounds like at every touch point for the marketing and retargeting, I think the theme I'm getting is that a lot of people are seeing this as a single layer, and you're kind of coming at it like this, dude, this is multi-dimensional. Like, yes, retarget everybody, but even the retargeting should have a sequential sequence because there is a journey to even learning a brand, which again is a different perspective. Like segmenting is one way of looking at multi-dimensions, but you're talking about sequential in the retargeting creative.
Absolutely.
I guess the first thought that comes to mind for me is in practice. I love that, right? Because I definitely agree. There are some where I think it's always easy to remember bad retargeting. And some of the bad retargeting I see is like, hey, you came on the website once and, look at this limited edition thing that we have. And I'm like, first off, I don't even know if I know your brand and your product. And second, I don't care about limited edition when I don't know anything about you guys, right?
Yes.
Where it's funny, I have a tab open on the side of a brand I do buy from, and they're like, hey, we have some limited edition products. I'm like, well, in this case, I am interested because I buy your products all the time. But how are you navigating sequential? Like, is it something where it's just a time thing where after 5 days you change the ad, or do they need to re-engage? What is that mix looking like?
That's a great question. I think some of our most common triggers for someone to graduate from one piece to another is how deep did they go on the page, right? If someone only went on your homepage, then you could probably ascertain that they're probably on the upper side of that funnel, right? So they probably need to watch episode 1. But if someone went all the way to the product detail page, or maybe even to the cart page, then that person is definitely more invested. They probably learned a lot more about the brand. So you can kind of steer them toward that piece of the funnel, right? Another kind of big trigger point for us is what is the number of touch points that they had? Like, did they visit 2 times in the last 7 days, or did they visit 7 times? Right? Someone who has visited many, many, many times is probably going to be further down the funnel than someone who has only visited once.
Yeah.
Right. Then you combine that with like the different look back windows, the different time ranges. And then that's probably like a good place to start without getting too crazy and too granular with the segments.
So the time ranges then for you, it clicks in time. The 2 major touch points right now are engagement on the website. How deep are they navigating and clicking through? And the second dimension or variable, I'm not a scientist, so I always throw around these random things, but second variable is time, like how long has it been, or how long were they on the website essentially, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And so to me, to understand this sequential thing, to really flush this out, could you execute it in a way, when I say could you, I mean like you're recommended. I'm sure you can do anything you want, but could you just do a sequential retargeting where, hey, they came on the website one time, they went on the homepage and they left. Give them the story. After 7 days, give them a different one where it's talking about the product. And then after another 7 days, do this. Is that a way of doing something the sequential, or are you more recommending like, no, the sequence is driven when they come back. If they click here, now show them the next ad. Like, how is the sequential executing for you?
I think the first scenario that you mentioned is the place to start, right? Like, again, we don't want to build like a massive labyrinth of choices, right? Like, especially for a lot of brands, I think the first piece is already like a step above, and you should be able to get some pretty big return, right? Like, I think there's comes to a point for every brand where there's diminishing returns, right? So I think I would start there. And again, if you're not seeing the results that you're looking for, or your segments are just simply too large, or, maybe something's not clicking, then you can, pivot and try something else and maybe get a little deeper. But I think that first scenario that you mentioned is a really good framework, at least specifically for e-commerce. That's a really good framework to start off with.
One of those frameworks where like after I've heard it and said it out loud, I'm like, duh, like, of course, like we all want to market. Why wouldn't you do it that way? But like before this interview, because when we were emailing each other, we didn't get this deep. I was like,
yeah,
I would have never thought that. I always thought retargeting is a billboard, but that is such a waste of an opportunity. Because yeah, of course, a billboard, you can't do much after they drive past it. The real cool ones, though, we're both in Orange County, is when you're driving to Vegas and the billboards are like, hey, we're like 75 miles away. Now we're 50 miles away. Like, oh, okay.
Hey, there's a personalization there. They know where you are, at least.
There's a sequence to, but you should use the technology that's available to go beyond just a billboard thought process and have a sequence for the user.
Yes.
I think the theme for me, you're saying TV shows is like there's like multi dimensions on segmentation and also sequencing of the ads as well. So
Mm.
of course, like you said, I think the key is as excited as we are getting about the complexity of the dimensions and variables, you're also like, but remember, like don't jump into the complexity yet. Like get the foundation first, and then we can get
Yes.
to complexity.
Yes. Strategy and complexity are very attractive, but it all comes down to execution. So if you have a simple strategy, simple level of complexity, but you execute very, very well, and you're getting really good results, at that point, go ahead and add in another layer, right?
So as we kind of round out, the time we have today, I guess, do you have like a general, like brands, he listened to this and they're like, never thought about segmentation to that level, never thought of sequencing on that level. Do you have like a go-to number of like, okay, we're fresh, let's just try to get 3 segments. You know what I mean? Do you have like a beginning number right when you're fresh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 3 is a good target point. 1 is purchasers, people who have purchased, very different non-purchasers, right? So right then and there, there's 1 segment. And then you take your non-purchasing segment or your non-converting segment, you divide it up into extremely warm and then everyone else, right? So for what is extremely warm? For us in e-com, that is anyone who's added to cart. Like they have gone through almost every single step in the consideration cycle other than checking out, right? So that's another breed of customer versus someone that was not even carrying enough to add to cart, right? If you're in lead gen, then that would be people who maybe they're at the form and they fill in 3 fields and then they abandon, right? That's one type of customer versus someone who never even got to the form. So I would just start with those 3 and then see how big those segments are and see what the results are when we start with those.
Gotcha. So 3 purchasers, non-purchasers, and warm. Those are the 3, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah. Well, let's call it converters. And then of the non-converting one, very warm, non-converting, and then everyone else.
Got it. Okay, cool. Is there anything in the retargeting bucket that we didn't go through that you wanted to kind of bring up? Because again, like I mentioned, I'm not the expert here. Maybe I'm blind spotting some things, but is there anything that you didn't bring up already that you kind of want to explore a bit?
Well, I would say that, there is definitely a trend or philosophy of brands using discount codes as like the closing messaging for retargeting. And I would say just tread carefully, right? Like we've done so much A/B testing with discount codes and we tracked the lifetime value of different amounts and different structures and such. And, a lot of times I would challenge brands to find a way to close customers without, that discount code as the last touch in a retargeting funnel, right? Because you'll be very surprised at the things that drive someone to purchase that you can use without discounting. Because discounting, I think, is a very slippery slope, and I think you have to use it very strategically. So I think that could be a whole nother discussion, but that's something I would probably leave off.
Oh yeah, I'm one of those weirdos that actually went to school for what I do as my day-to-day trade. I do marketing as a living, and I actually went to school for marketing.
Cool.
I've learned that is a dime a dozen, that a lot of people don't do that. But one of the central tenets in marketing that we did learn in school is the second you give a discount code, you can never close that door again. Like you become a brand that it's not like everyone talks about it, but they know that you've had a discount and they will always remember it. And it's very hard to shake off. And so you don't want to compete on price either, because if you're small, you cannot compete there. You'll never win there. So I do want to share an anecdote because I think you would appreciate this and the listeners would.
Yeah.
A good example of what you're talking about is, so we've been taking my dog to Long Beach, the city in California, and they have like a dog store there. And last time we were there, they gave us like a CBD treat, and she has sciatica. So like, for her to be able to sleep was cool and not feel pain. So we went back and my girlfriend and I were like in the store and I'm like, well, let's get another pack, but I'm not committed yet. Let's get the cheapest one that they offer. But there was like a 4-pack. And I'm like, I'm not buying the big baggie. I just want to buy the 4-pack. Not trying to spend a lot of money right now. Whatever. Get to the counter. And I said to the owner of the shop, I was like, hey, CBD is a kind of the wild, wild west, even in human CBD products. I don't even know for dogs how it is. What do you recommend? This product you have other ones. Like, what are your thoughts? And again, I'm not naming brands so no one can get mad. She was like, oh, well, this is a newly stocked one. But one of the other ones that we stock, I give to my dog personally. I love the ingredients. We have a lot of repeat customers who want the other one. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I dropped the one I had and I went to go get the other one. it was like 8 times more expensive, but suddenly price was not my concern anymore because
Yeah.
a lot of consumers, and this is what we learn in school, think that price is what they're operating on, when in all actuality, when you get down to it, it really often is not. For me, it was quality and social proofing that like, okay, this is my prized dog. Like, I don't want to give it freaking random CBD trash. And so to me, just to kind of round out that idea that it's not always about price, is you can have other proofings that really drive it home rather than just the price side.
Well, I think she addressed your FUDs very well, right?
Yeah, dude. It's funny because I was wanting to share that story the whole time. I'm like, I don't know if that organically fits, but you kind of softballed me to tell that story in the end.
Always happy to help. I had no idea.
All right, Edwin. I think I really enjoyed the retargeting conversation. I think we went as deep as we thought we could, and I think that we can get even farther with it. But dude, multi-dimensions. It's funny how simplistic I think I've thought about it, and I think most brands are thinking about it as well. But obviously, to the people who walk away, who are like, bro, I need to talk to Edwin because he knows retargeting on a level that I've never even thought of. Where can you tell people where to find you and, how to get a hold of you or where to find your stuff?
Yeah. I mean, best place, why don't you just email me? So it'd be Edwin, EDWIN at jetfuel.agency. If you have any questions or you want, someone to, talk shop with or just kind of bounce some ideas off of, I'm more than happy to do so. And you can find me on Twitter as well and LinkedIn.
Shameless plug. Tell them about your book.
Okay. So it's not related at all to marketing, but we do have a children's book that my wife and I created. It's called Dim Sum Please, and you can find it on Amazon. And we created it because, we speak Cantonese and there wasn't a lot of Cantonese books out there. We're both very passionate fans of dim sum, right? So we thought it'd be fun to create a book that we could use to teach our son Cantonese because a lot of the books out there are Mandarin Chinese, right? And it just kind of blew up. And now, the books, I had someone message me, it's like, I found your book, the Sydney Public Library, and I'm using it to teach my son Cantonese and I love it. Or someone messaged me and it was like, I'm in South Africa. There's not a lot of resources here, but I'm trying to learn my native language. So it's been very rewarding and we're working on our second book right now. And hopefully we have a whole series coming out.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, and you're right. Cantonese is not as well documented in terms of learning the language. But people are not for that, so that's a whole other thing. All right, man. Well, Edwin, thanks again, man. I really appreciate you joining today's episode. I think there was so much good stuff in there. I think really walking away, it's all about just the way that you're thinking about the retargeting, especially for the e-com brands. So again, thanks for joining the podcast, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast.